What's up everybody, this is Brenton Brown from Forza Tuning and Performance, and today we got a video kind of based on the Acura NSX. So we have one sitting right here. We've done some modifications to it. We're going to do a walk around and we're going to give some details on what exactly we've done to this and what we offer for these cars. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the NSX, its history, so the first generation of the cars and now the newer cars. Okay, so the Gen 1 NSX, so the first variation of the car, was produced from 1990 all the way to 2005, so through about a 15-year span. They were built in a purpose-built factory in Japan. Okay, so they literally built the factory specifically to build the NSX. The NSX was actually the first production vehicle to feature an all-aluminum body, which at the time in 1990, that was pretty revolutionary. If you think back and you look at the different cars at that time, nobody was doing this. So that was a very innovative step on Acura's part. So originally the NSX came with an all aluminum 3-liter V6 engine. It was mated with a 5-speed automatic transmission. The car produced around 270 horsepower and 210 foot-pounds of torque. It was a very light car. The curb weight on the original NSX was around 3,000 pounds. So even today's standards on cars using extremely advanced materials, 3,000 pounds is an extremely light car. So in a lot of ways, it was very innovative in design, especially for its time, and it was a really well-performing car. So in 1994, they came out with the F-matic automatic transmission. So it was a automatic transmission option that was a 4-speed. You could let it automatically shift, or you had the option of the paddle shifter. This made the car's performance numbers better, made the car faster. The original cars were all coupes, and then in 95, they switched them to target tops. So most of the ones you see are all target tops, and that's why the first few years they did have just a coupe style design. So then fast forward to 1997. So now the 3-liter engine gets replaced with a 3.2-liter V6 engine. So now power went up from 270 horsepower to 290, and torque went from 210 to around 224. So that is probably the most common type car that you see. Past that, it really remained unchanged until 2002, where it received a facelift, and that's basically stayed the exact same car until 2005, and it was finally discontinued. There are some conflicting numbers about how many cars were actually sold. It ran for a span of 15 years, and you'll see numbers, they all hover right around 9,000. I've seen numbers that's 8,999. I'm not 100% sure if that's the actual specific number, but it's somewhere around 9,000 cars. So when you consider that it was produced for 15 years and right around 9,000 cars were produced, it makes it a pretty rare car by today's standards. So that pretty much sums up the highlights of the first Gen NSX. So let's fast forward to Gen 2, which is what we have right here. The general public first heard rumors of this from Honda Acura in 2007, and they claimed that the NSX predecessor, which they had not called the NSX at this time, was going to be available by 2010. There was a number of setbacks in design and money and this and that. So basically about 9 years went past. So the actual second Gen NSXs did not go on sale until 2016. So they're 2016 up until the present time. Obviously, the new NSX is a drastically different car than the old one. It is a hybrid electric vehicle, which means it has the 3.5-liter Honda V6 twin turbo engine in the back, and it utilizes 3 electric motors, okay? 2 of those are in the front, which make the car all-wheel drive. Because of the configuration of the car, it's capable of producing 600 horsepower and around 475 foot-pounds of torque. It is heavier than the older cars, so curb weight on this is right under 3,900 pounds. A lot of that comes into play with the hybrid technology and the electric motors. You do have, more weight, and then obviously the cars of today have a lot more feature-rich than back in the early and mid-90s. So by today's standard, 3,900 pounds is not crazy. So the original NSX we've mentioned that were made specifically in a design factory in Japan. So the new NSX is actually made in Honda's plant in Marysville, Ohio. So, that's kind of a drastic difference from the first generation to what we see today that's actually made in the United States. The transmission in the new NSXs is a 9-speed dual clutch semi-automatic transmission. The shift characteristics are very impressive to say the least. This car does 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds bone stock, which is very fast. And let's talk a little bit about sales numbers, because I think that's an interesting area for the new NSX, okay? So as of 2019, there was only around somewhere 1,250, 1,260 cars sold. Honestly, Honda and Acura thought the car was gonna be much more popular than it was. The original sticker price was somewhere around $160,000. I think maybe just a little bit under that. But it would not be anything to see dealers trying to sell these for $170,000, $180,000 when they first came out. What happened is the demand for the car was not near as high as they anticipated. So you can see these cars that are a few years old that never actually got sold. I've seen these cars go frequently brand new from the dealership that have never been sold for $140,000. I've even seen them as low as $120,000. So obviously, you know, the demand for it wasn't as high as they anticipated. Honestly, I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know if it's just because the Honda and Acura name, it has a harder time bringing that amount of money to it. The car is a very well-engineered car. Obviously, Honda makes some of the best stuff in the world as far as engineering and reliability. It is what it is. So if you're looking for a car that you can get for a really good price, these are very easy to find for drastically below sticker price. And a lot of them are literally still at the dealerships from 2 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about why this car is here and what we've done to it. So we service these cars just like any other dealer alternative repair. This one came in for performance modifications. So what we did on this is we did air filters, custom tuning, and we did cat delete pipes and full exhaust. Okay, so we're gonna take the car out on the road and let you hear what it sounds like. I do not have a sound clip of what it sounds like stock, but if you've ever heard one or you hear a sound clip on the internet, this is going to sound drastically more aggressive. You can really hear the turbos extremely well on it. So exhaust modification is very popular in these cars. Now, I want to talk a little bit about tuning this car. When we first had the opportunity to start modifying these cars and tuning them, probably one of the biggest challenges that we ran across was actually trying to get the car to do a dyno pull in a repeatable measure that you could quantify data, okay? In other words, the car with the electric motors in the front, even with an all-wheel drive dyno, posed a lot of problems. In other words, we couldn't really get concrete dyno numbers, and they would vary, not enough where we felt that we were confident enough to make changes and claim a specific power gain like normal. So we had to come up with something new that we've literally never had to do on another car. The traction control on the car is phenomenal. Okay, so we didn't really have the issue with wheel slip. Number one, it's all-wheel drive. The traction control system is very, very advanced. So you have basically no wheel spin launching from a stop. What we did was we started to test and verify 0 to 100 mile per hour times using a V-Box. Okay, so we did numerous runs and collected some data from about 6 different runs, and we tested these on different days with different weather conditions, okay? And then we took all the data down and collected it, and then we started the tuning process, okay? And that's what we used to measure gain, okay? So we didn't actually have a horsepower figure. The only thing that we could go off is a reduction in 0 to 100 mile per hour time. So when we got done tuning and we felt like we had optimized the power and everything, the car was over a full second faster between 0 and 100. I am not an engineer or a mathematician or anything like that, so I had to reach out to some colleagues of mine that are engineers, and I wanted to try to attach a horsepower gain number to it. So they took in various factors of the car like weight. They looked up a lot of information on the car. They took into consideration the aerodynamics of the car. And basically what they equated that to is for a car of this type and this drive characteristics with this shape to achieve over a full second faster 0 to 100 mile per hour time, it would be at least 120 horsepower gain over stock, and that would be a conservative number. So that's what we rate the tune with, okay? But again, we do not have concrete dyno numbers to back this up, so when I get those numbers, that's exactly how we came about it. I feel confident that those are accurate. We've got so many other cars that we tune that are in the 80, 100, 120 horsepower, gain range over stock that are similar weight. So you get a feel after years of doing it of what it actually feels like. And I feel pretty confident that number one, it feels like it's definitely 120 horsepower gain over stock. And number two, more importantly than what I feel it feels like, I trust the engineers that did the calculations and came up with that figure even more so than myself. That's kind of an interesting, deal that we ran into this car. And I have to say, this is the only car that I've actually ever had to come up with a different method and think outside the box with and use something different than as far as, you know, like using a V-Box. Sometimes I'll tune at the track, so you have quarter-mile times, but this was the first V-Box car, and, you know, I've never really ran into a dyno problem other than this one. So that pretty much sums it up. We're gonna do a walk around of the car, number one, so you all can see the specifics. This is not a real common car, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to show you up close. Personally, this is my favorite color of this car. We've had several of these in here for performance packages. I absolutely love this orange color. And then we'll take it out on the road so you can hear it and see it perform, and you can kind of see, you know, get some different aspects of the car in case you're something you're interested in, or you own one and you're thinking about doing something to it, or you're thinking about purchasing one. So we'll go ahead and let's take a look at the car up close. We already popped it inside. The release is over here down at the bottom. It's kind of a little bit different spot. So this right off the bat is obviously pretty unique looking. You don't really see too many cars like this. I mean, even like Lamborghinis and stuff, you know, they'll have kind of like a trunk type thing here, I guess you'd call it. So this is very unique. You can kind of get a good look, up close look. I mean, it's kind of like bare race car lookish. I mean, these are obviously the top of the fender well, the electronically controlled suspension. You see the top of the struts here, radiator, fans, all your typical stuff. You know, that's pretty wild looking underneath. And we can kind of walk around just so you get up close, whatever. Obviously, you see the cooling ducts, you see the radiators inside there. Similar to a Lamborghini or whatnot. Here's how the door handles open. So this car, it might be hard to see in its lighting, but this is actually a black and like dark navy blue interior. So you can kind of see it, you know, the navy blue and then the black inserts. It's very much styled kind of like a fighter jet cockpit style type interior. It hugs you really tight. You know, there's not a lot of room in there. It's comfortable though. You know, it's not like it's an uncomfortable car by any means. Pop this, and this is basically what you have as a trunk. Okay, so not a whole lot of space here, but you got a little something. You can see this right here. This is pretty cool. It actually has a number, precision crafted by Performance Manufacturing Center. Every single car is numbered, and I think they did a really good job with like the engine covers underneath here. This is like a really cool design, I think. You can see like the intake pipes, the way they did like the, you know, the grading right here. I think it's a very aesthetic pleasing, you know, under hood appearance. And then you can see all this with it closed. You know, they have the glass top, and they have the carbon fiber, you know, obviously. This is the exhaust. This is aftermarket. We put this on. And if any of you want to know, this is Fab Speed exhaust. That's what we used. We use them all the time. They make really good stuff. You can take a look at the brakes. Pretty kind of standard protocol. I mean, you know, nothing crazy. It's got 305/30 ZR20s on the back. The NSX calipers, you know, the small caliper in the back for the emergency brakes. And you want to come up here. And again, it's got a pretty substantial size brake on it as well. Front tire size is 245/35/19. So 20s in the back, 19s on the front, two-piece rotors. It stops very well, it handles extremely well. It's a very well-built car. Take it in. So we put catless downpipes on this thing. They are a complete bitch to do, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn it on. So this is hybrid electric. So right here in this middle button, you have your dynamic mode, okay? And this changes the drive modes. So right now I just switched over to sport so the exhaust would stay, well, the engine would stay running so you'd hear the exhaust. I'm gonna switch this, okay? So for instance, you can take a look. I don't know if you can see this very well. Okay, so now the car did not shut off. It went into electric mode. Okay, so this is what it'll do in regular mode. It has EV up on the dash, and it shows you your battery charge right here, as well as your fuel level right here. So very hybrid electric-ish. And you can change this drive mode to a number of different things. So like right now, you can change this to quiet. So on the stock setup, it gives you all the different parameters. Let me pull it back up. So suspension, all-wheel drive, powertrain. This tells you how aggressive everything is and gives you an explanation. I mean, it literally says quiet mode. So we have sport mode, sport plus, and this is the most aggressive. So when you're in sport plus, here. So I just put it back in sport and the engine shut off, okay? So sport plus is the most aggressive. Obviously quiet is, you know, electric car. So if you want the car to stay running and hear the exhaust, put it sport plus, keeps it like that all the time. And obviously, depending on what drive mode you're in, it's how much power the car has. So when I say it is capable of producing 600 horsepower and 475 foot-pounds of torque, that is in the most aggressive drive mode. Okay, so you've got a lot of adjustability stock. The engine management in the car is extremely sophisticated, as well as the body control module, everything. It's a very advanced car. They spent a long time developing this thing. It sounds really impressive. If you want, you know, I'll give it a short rev. You can hear the turbo spool, and then we can take it out on the road, and then you'll really get a real good idea of what it kind of sounds like when you're actually driving or driving by. So pretty cool. Go ahead and shut it off. Now, stock, in my opinion, the car doesn't sound very good. It's very quiet. It just doesn't do the car justice. It doesn't sound anything like what the car is or what it would perform like. So in my opinion, you know, exhaust is a very good complementary modification that you can do, because the car looks aggressive and it handles aggressive. It corners absolutely phenomenal. It feels like it's on rails. But just stock, it just very conservative. It doesn't even sound remotely like a sports car. So obviously you can see now it's totally different. It kind of sounds like the part. This is the second gen NSX. So we'll take it out on the road, you can get a better feel for it, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, so we just took the NSX out. I hope that was a good way for you all to hear the difference between the exhaust on the aftermarket, where you delete the cats and the full exhaust, and the turbo spool compared to the very conservative stock exhaust. So not only does the car perform phenomenally better, in my opinion, it sounds much more aggressive, much better. So that's pretty much it. That wraps it up. I do want to go ahead and give you all a heads up that next week we have a super cool video regarding this NSX. I can't really tell you what it's about, but I would for sure check into that. We had basically a guest come by that is, well, you just have to watch the video. It's super cool, so just check it out. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.